Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And as always, I'm your host, the Ambassador. Glad you could tune in this evening for the stream. Tonight, we're going to be continuing our series on Disney cult classics. And with me this evening, I have got a good friend of the channel, has become a good friend of mine, the nobody geek who is not a nobody, Jesse. Good evening, Jesse. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm actually amazed I made it here, but I'm good. I just, like I told you earlier, just my back's killing me. So just if I slur a little bit, it's
I know.
I just want you to know that. But yeah, let's go, man. I'm so happy to be here.
Hey, and those coming into the chat, those are here already. As always, my right hand woman, she is Storm Dragon, mother of moderators. Good evening, ma'am. Glad you're here to keep these ruffians in line. And to all those everybody else that's coming in, and those that will be coming in, to Netcat, to Speaker for the Dead, and Moira Kitty. Good evening. Glad y'all could tune in. We're going to be talking Disney classics and everything. We're going to be taking our series from last week, and we're going to be talking about two animated favorites of mine, actually, that you can currently find on Disney Plus. Every movie that I talk about during this series and everything, you can currently find on Disney Plus. And tonight we're going to talk about The Sword and the Stone and Robin Hood. So make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you share this out and everything. Get the word out that I am live, because YouTube's been a little, glitchy lately. So we want everybody to enjoy these. So, but anyway, that all being said, folks, glad you could be here tonight. And we're going to have some fun. We're going to take a little time and everything. We're going to discuss these two great classics from Disney's vault and everything. And and Jesse, really, I am glad you're here. I am sorry that your back is bothering you. I hope it does get better, my friend. So.
Hey, man, I've been dealing with it 21 years. You know what? It's okay. But you know what? Talking about The Sword and the Stone, talking about the Robin Hood movie, the Disney with the Robin
animated one.
Fox. Yeah, you know what's going to be great is it's going to be the first time I'm going to be able to say on your channel, I know where I saw these the first time, and they weren't in my grandma's basement.
Well, that's just nifty. That's great, man.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, I know exactly where I saw those two. They were one of the two most amazing Disney cartoon movies for me. Actually, it was so funny. Sword in the Stone was actually the first Disney movie. I asked my grandma if I could rewind the movie and watch it again.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Well, for me, the first time I saw these, I wasn't exactly at the ideal age where you would see these. Like if I wasn't a young kid when I saw these the first time. I was actually like in my teens and everything. I was in high school when I saw these, and we got them on VHS back in the day, and I watched them and everything, and watched them, and they've become a favorite of mine throughout my life. And I think honestly, the great thing about these two movies, these both are good introductions to these mythological tales, like the Arthurian legend and the folk legend of Robin Hood. Now, both these obviously come from across the pond. They come from England and everything, and they're both kind of a mishmash of different types of mythology from different cultures and everything. But we do know them to be from Great Britain, from England. And,
yeah, exactly.
And the first one we'll talk about is Sword in the Stone. And this one, I think, like I said, is a good introduction to the Arthurian legend for those who are younger, or maybe for those who just want a good rudimentary idea of the whole Arthurian myth. And
I love the owl. I'm gonna say it right there. I love that owl.
Archimedes. Yeah, Archimedes.
Yeah, Archimedes. I mean, oh my God, that little owl was the most funniest thing and
Yeah.
probably the smartest person on the whole thing.
Well, except for maybe Merlin.
I
And
don't know. Merlin went
speaker,
to
your fortune.
Bermuda.
Bless me to Bermuda.
Bermuda. Where did he go? Bermuda, I suppose.
Bermuda.
Oh, some island that hasn't been discovered yet.
Hasn't been discovered yet.
Will
So,
they ever come back?
who
I don't
knows?
know. I don't know. It's like,
Who knows? Who?
yeah,
As speaker for the state said, who? What? Yeah.
yeah,
And
exactly. He was cranky the next morning.
he
He
was
was cranky every night.
well, you have to remember. Well, you have to, but then you have to remember about owls is they are primarily nocturnal. So for him to be up during the day is somewhat unnatural for him.
Orthodox.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
but
I heard
mhm,
Disney was thinking about doing a live action of this, and I'm thinking, okay, your live actions are hit or miss.
and
My
this
wife and
one
I
on,
tried to watch Lady and the Tramp on Disney Plus, and
yeah,
we were like, no, sorry, this is a miss, and it was a
hmm
bad miss.
hmm
And I don't want to see one of my favorite shows of Disney's classics, Sword and Stone,
hmm
get uh, get treated like that. That direct to Disney meant that it was. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but it meant it was probably going to suck. And yeah,
yeah. Honestly, I didn't even bother to watch the remake of Lady and the Tramp. I know it's on Disney Plus right now, and I might actually go and watch it sometime because it's one of those I didn't know if I would like as a kid, so I didn't really sit down and watch it. But now that it's on Disney Plus and we have it, I might give it a watch. I might give the original a watch because I went for
go
more
for
of the
the original. Do not go for that
yeah,
remake.
yeah. Because for me, I went for more of the fantasy and the folk tale movies and everything with Disney and everything when it came to the animated stuff. And this was honestly the Sword and the Stone for me was I think honestly one of the better in a manner of speaking retellings of the beginning of the Arthurian legend because you don't get the whole Arthurian legend in this. Now, if you want to do a good follow up after Sword and the Stone, that's maybe a little more, that is definitely more adult, and everything does stick more to the Arthurian mythos, the lore and everything. Excalibur by John Borman is excellent and everything. And I might talk about that one. I might talk about that movie at some point and everything because that's another great '80s movie that I honestly absolutely love. And of course, the guy who plays Merlin in that movie, he has a voice that could melt gold in a manner of speaking. But as far as
I've actually never seen Excalibur myself. The '80s one. I mean, I know of it. I've just never seen it.
what
Hey,
what
I
what?
mean, what?
How can you have what?
My grandmother didn't have it in her basement, man. I told you this.
But you're a grown man. You could watch it now. Never seen How can you not have seen? How can you not have seen Excalibur? How can you not have seen Excalibur? This is like me saying I've never watched Clue all the way through, and you know how much grief I've caught for that. Unfortunately, I'm still looking for a copy. I may have to just bite the bullet and buy it off Amazon. But
Wait, whoa, wait. You've never seen Clue all the way through.
haven't had the opportunity.
And
So,
you're getting on my case.
yeah, but I've seen Excalibur.
Okay, I understand that, but I haven't seen it. You're telling me you've seen parts of Clue, right?
I have seen parts of it, but I have not seen
Yeah,
all of it all the way.
then you're worse than I am because I've never seen. I'll tell you what. We're
And
gonna make a challenge. No, I got a challenge for you. I will watch Excalibur by Sunday, by
Okay.
Easter Sunday, if you finish Clue.
I have to get a copy
I
first.
promise, and then we can have a discussion over it.
Okay. And to the chat, our good friend Loki is here. Hey Loki, if you want to be on tonight, um, just send me a DM on Twitter if you're lurking. That's cool. I know you've been busy. I know you had your stream this morning. Oh, and guess who else is here? Adega Outlaw. Hey Adega, just out of curiosity, how's your purple thong fit?
What did you
So
just say?
Shay had told me about it. It happened this morning on Loki's stream and everything. Mornings of Mischief.
I wasn't there today. Oh no, for me, sorry, off topic. My kids were up early, so we homeschooled them early. I walked my dogs and everything, and
No, but Loki, all seriousness, if you do want to come on, let me know and I'll DM you the link and everything to the stream if you want to talk Sword in the Stone and Robin Hood. If you're just lurking and you're just hanging, it's all good. So
Robin and Little John running through the forest.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Golly, what
Jesse,
a day.
Jesse, we'll get to that in a little bit. We're talking Sword of the Stone right now.
Yeah. Actually, but what I was saying was serious. It's one of those few times I'll tell you. When I watched Sword in the Stone, it was when I lived in West Virginia, and it was probably, if I could remember correctly, one of my first Disney VHS movies. And I love it so much. I went in after it was over and I asked my grandma, and I said, Grandma, can I watch it again? She goes, yeah. So I watched The Sword in the Stone, straight up back to back. And I loved it. It was just a fun movie to watch. As an older person, I haven't watched it yet, but now I'm like, kind of want to see if it's on Disney Plus. If it is, I want to kind of see it now and see if how I feel about it now. But Archimedes was always my favorite character on that. The owl was just so much. Yeah. He was just so cranky and so like stuck up, and I was like, I like this guy. And then of course I realized, oh, I'm a stuck up ass. I guess I can relate to him.
Yeah, the other thing I liked about Archimedes, and folks, my camera's a little out of focus tonight. Sorry about that. So I might be off camera a little more than I am on. But the other thing I really liked about Sword in the Stone is, I know some people may say the art style was cheap, but at the same time, I think now I can't remember when exactly this movie was made and everything. I think it was like in the 50s or the 60s. It was one of those and everything of one of those Disney ones. Everything was from the 50s or 60s. That I think even now the art style really holds up, because the one thing I do like about these particular series of Disney movies, you have the opening and everything where they have the old bound book that's got like the really fancy cover on it and all, and it opens, and then you have the guy come in and start singing and everything, and he's talking about the story. It's kind of like a prologue for the movie, and it's just it's a nice piece. It's a nice way to introduce the story to people and everything, give them kind of a run up and everything so they know what's going on and what have you. Excuse me. And then you come in and you see, if I remember correctly, I just watched this the other day. You see,
Wart.
Yeah, you see little Arthur, you see little Wart and everything, just kind of bungling around and what have you. And you feel bad for the kid because he's trying to be a good squire to his brother or whatever it is and everything. And then later on you zoom out into the forest. Actually, no, the beginning of the movie actually begins with Merlin and Archimedes because they start off in the forest and everything. It's a very dark, very grim, very frightening looking forest. And it has this very sinister feel to it. And the great thing about this is you don't need a whole lot of background because of that opening for the movie. And you get this idea that this is the dark ages of England when the Arthurian legend is mainly set in every iteration that we've gotten thus far. So, yeah, speaker, thank you. And unfortunately, the land is without a king. The people are seemingly divided, as the voiceover says. The strong prey upon the weak, and you see that wolf that will play a somewhat of a prominent role in everything through a little bit of the movie.
Yep.
And you zoom in on Merlin, and he's at a well, and he's like, "Dark Ages, blasted Dark Ages, one big medieval mess. No plumbing, no electricity, just one big giant mess." And and the interesting thing is that feeds into the whole idea that Merlin was either a time traveler, or there was one prominent theory about Merlin that he actually aged backwards. And I love
He
that.
was a time traveler when he said, "Blow me to Bermuda." I mean, that's where I would go with that.
And I understand, Loki. Glad you could tune in regardless or anything. Thank you for being here, my friend, as always. So, but yeah, you get this very strong, and I love how I love the how they portrayed Merlin in this, because he is quirky, he is mercurial, he is a bit. How do I want to put this? He can be
he's an idiot sage. He knows something big is coming, but he doesn't know what it is. So he is, for lack of a better term, he's an idiot sage. Yeah. I mean, for lack of anything, I mean, I don't want to go blasphemy here, but just think of it as he is Merlin. Kind of takes kind of a little John the Baptist.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
But that's why I said I didn't want to go blasphemy.
No, and Jesse, you're not going to offend me. Far from it. You've never said anything offensive to me, period. So don't worry about that at all.
No, the thing Robin and Little John running through the forest.
Jesse,
I'm sorry, yes.
Later, chill, dudes. Dude, buds, chill.
I saw it up on my video.
I know, that's the background. We'll talk about that when we get to it. We're talking about Sword in the Stone right now, so stay on target.
I was no, No, you're good, man. What were you saying, bud?
Well, actually, Loki brings up a good point. He's like, one thing I'm surprised they touch on in the movies is he ages in reverse. That's actually in the old war. Yeah, Loki, you're right. It is and everything. A lot of the theories about Merlin is that one that I mentioned already is either he aged in reverse, he was a time traveler, or what have you. I think that's the two most prominent ones, and I think that's around the Arthurian legend anyway. Now, in the there was a video I watched not too long ago that actually kind of broke down the entire mythos around the Arthurian legend, and it turned out that Merlin was he was like a druid. He wasn't a wizard per se, but he was a druid. But I like the fact that this
wasn't that the movie with
yeah, you're thinking of King Arthur, the one with Clive Owen as Arthurius. Yeah, yeah, and they portray Merlin as a druid. Yeah, that's the one you're
Yeah, I
thinking.
mean, oh, by the
Mhm.
way, I like that movie.
It's a good one. I think it's a pretty good one and everything. I think Excalibur is better in a lot of ways, and even this one and everything, even though it's a kid's version of the Arthurian tale and everything, it does a good job presenting the story, building the relationship between a young Arthur and Merlin. I liked the relationship between Arthur and Merlin and everything in this movie. And I
Yeah, I
like the
did
fact, and
too.
I like the fact that when I think it's Sir Ector, which I think was a shortening of the actual knight from the Arthurian legend, Sir Hector, Hector with an H, or maybe there was an Hector. I got uh, bone up
Sure.
on my Arthurian legends. I like the fact that when Hector asked Merlin, like, "Do you going for that black magic?" and he's like, "No,
No,
never
no, no,
touch this
never
stuff." He's
touch the
like,
stuff.
"Never touch the stuff." He's like, "I use mine mainly for educational purposes," and he does for the most part. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that Merlin trying to be a tutor, he's trying to expand Arthur's mind or Ward's
Yeah,
mind.
but there's I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Hmm.
Arthur was a bit of a jerk. Arthur
And
was like expecting, no, sorry, not Arthur. Merlin was trying to teach him all this stuff and expect him to understand it right off the bat.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was a very short time for him. And then when he's
hmm
like, he finally got, I know I'm kind of cutting the end where he's like, I'm a squire and he's happy about it. And he's like, I thought you were going to amount to something. He goes, you don't understand. And, you get to the end, you get to a point, you realize neither one of them really kind of connected at that moment until the end.
yeah. Well, and honestly, I think that particular moment is a bit of a fault in the movie. And I'm not trying to be a negative here, but
Mm-hmm.
you jump ahead and what have you, and they find out that the other squire Hobbs has come down with the mumps, and Ector tells Arthur, "You're going to be Kay's squire now because the other guy's sick."
Yeah. And he forgets his sword. But remember, the whole point was everybody else tried to pull that sword out for selfish reasons. He was trying to pull that sword out for unselfish. He was trying to take care
Yeah,
of his, for his knight. So it was all unselfish. That's why nobody else could pull it out. Because
yeah.
even the second time he pulled it out, it was still unselfish.
Hmm. Well, not only that, if you believe the whole thing behind the Arthurian legend, which, as far as legends go, it's I think one of the better ones that we have and everything in the world. He was, in a manner of speaking, preordained. He was predestined to be king because he was unselfish. He was kind. He was selfless in a lot of ways. And yeah, to Speaker of the Dead, Merlin's fight with Madame Mim. Yeah, we'll get to that in a few minutes because that is honestly a fun one. But
I actually had a conversation with my cousin about, whether or not he cheated or not. That was a big discussion among people I knew, and they were like, "Did Merlin cheat Madame Mim?" But I kept arguing. She said no, pink dragon. Did I say no, purple dragon? I was like, we said pink
mhm.
dragon, and my dad would be like, well,
Well,
she didn't say no purple dragon. So I'm like, Dad.
but here's the thing. No dragons. Period. Should have been what Merlin should have said. But
Yeah.
kind of getting back to the thing I wanted to say. I think they, I don't know if they missed a scene or if they cut a scene out or something, because it just seemed like Merlin went unhinged for no apparent reason because he knew how much being a squire meant, being Kay's squire meant to Arthur. And for him to just kind of get aggravated with him when he knew that this kid was trying, Arthur was trying his hardest to understand what Merlin was trying to teach him in a lot of ways. He did catch on to a lot of it. Arthur was a quick study. He was quick on his feet and everything, and he had a good mind. But when you're presented with an opportunity like this to go to England to be a squire in the
In a
tournament,
class system like they have.
yeah, and well, and here's the other thing: if Merlin could see, in fact, see everything. This is not me poking at Merlin. If Merlin did have the gift of foresight to one extreme or another, he should have known that the sword was there in London. And if he realized who Arthur genuinely was, then he should have been like, "Yeah, you should go to London. You should go and be Kay's squire, because ultimately that's what leads Arthur to become King Arthur."
Well,
But I think,
remember at the end of the movie, it wasn't until the end when Merlin came back, he finally realized who Arthur was. He was King
yeah,
Arthur. So
yeah,
remember at the very beginning, I mean, I'm going to give them credit. They
yeah,
gave Merlin an out a lot of times where he's like, okay, I got somebody coming in. Okay, this guy's named Arthur. Okay, Arthur is not an uncommon name.
hmm,
So it's not like he knew
yeah,
because he obviously didn't, even though he came back from the 20th century, he still didn't know
hmm.
that Arthur was king. Or I'm just playing devil's advocate there,
And
but
I don't, and yeah,
everything you're saying is totally legit. I'm
mhm,
saying at that point, it, you're right about one thing. I actually want to say hands down, you're right. There is a scene missing from that movie now.
yeah, I think there
And it
is.
was one of my favorites. And where you say, he's like, I'm a squire, and he comes in all excited, and then, Merlin's like, huh. And then the owl and Archimedes is like, oh, very nice boy. You're right. I never even thought about it. Granted, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but
Yeah,
you're right. That would mean, yeah, now that scene doesn't make a damn
yeah.
bit of sense anymore.
Well, and Speaker makes a good point, and this could be what they were going for. And Speaker says he thinks he was afraid he was selling for scraps when he knew he was destined for something greater. It shows even Merlin was fallible. Well, yeah, and that's true, because even in the movie and everything, Excalibur from the 80s, Merlin doesn't know everything. Is he an extremely powerful sorcerer? Yeah, he is, but he does make mistakes. He does mess up. And I think that's one of the things that makes Merlin such an intriguing character, is the fact that there's this aura of mystery and enigma around him. We don't really know if he ever did truly exist, where there is no grave, there is no historical evidence of any kind that a person like Merlin did truly exist. But it's a neat thing to think, maybe, just maybe he did actually exist. And
Hey,
maybe
you
this
know
all.
what? Oh,
Mhm.
sorry, Ambassador, but I want to
No,
say,
no, go ahead.
I was a huge fan of reading the Iliad and the Odyssey when I
Yeah.
was very young, and it was one of the few times I even grasped poetry. And
Mhm,
trust me, I crap at that. But I was
mhm,
like, it was so much fun to enjoy and read. And it's what got me into Greek history,
mhm,
Uh, the Sword and the Stone is a wonderful piece of English or Kingdom or whatever they want to call themselves. Is history. And there's so many beautiful tales that come out of
mhm.
it. And
Yeah.
this Sword and the Stone was just one of my favorites. And now you've ruined it for me by pointing out that one flaw.
Well, here's
I'm just
Jesse,
messing with you.
I know. Here's the thing. In spite of its flaws, and David, that's a really good observation. I'd love to have, if you could elaborate on that further, or if you now if you Daga, if you feel up to being on tonight, I can send you a link and everything. If you don't feel up to it, because I know you just uploaded another video and everything for Children of the Directive. If you're not feeling up to it, that's cool. But if you can elaborate on that and everything, put it in the comments and I'll put it up here. So,
Yeah, I
or
would actually. What does he mean? Merlin's an ancient.
well,
That's interesting.
well, it's a myth. I want to say it's a mythological archetype in a manner of speaking. Um, he's like he's like a being that's ageless. Uh, the best corollary I could make is maybe like Anadega, forgive me, and everybody else forgive me if this is not a perfect one-to-one parallel. Oh, okay. Okay. Speak. All right, Adega, very funny. Ha ha ha. But
Don't think too much of it, bud.
no. I think what and even I think the reason I think there's a pearl of truth in what Adega had to say. Merlin was, in the manner of speaking, he is an ancient. An ancient. Think about think about Gandalf. Think about okay, let's go Lord of the Rings for just a minute. Think about Gandalf and Saruman and the other wizards that are referenced, like Radagast in the Lord of the Rings. They were what they were called the Asteri, which were I'm trying to boil this down to something that can be understood or it could be anything. I'm not saying anybody's dumb, just trying to keep it simple. Kiss, keep it simple, stupid. The Asteri were an order of beings that worked for the gods of Middle Earth, like Iluvatar, who was the chief god over all of creation, over Arda, which is the world of Middle Earth. That and they worked for these gods. They were like emissaries. Some people have compared them to like angels in one instance. And basically they were really super powerful. They didn't age or anything. They were immune to any type of damage or anything or being killed unless you fall out of favor with the gods. In the case of Saruman, he did, and what have you. And they're extremely durable. They're extremely wise and powerful and so on. And you can make the argument that Merlin was kind of like Gandalf or Saruman or so on, and that might even be where Tolkien got his inspiration for the wizards or the Asteri was Merlin. So, okay, that was a rabbit hole. Now let's see if we can pull ourselves out.
Oh, thank God! I was like, where were you going with that? Oh, thank God you got back around to it because I was like, I don't know where you're going with this because this is history or theology. I have no idea.
It's not. It's geek stuff. But it's really deep, really heavy geek stuff because it's Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh, okay, it's geek Tolkien. Okay, well, I'll be the
J.R.R.
first one to
Tolkien,
say I'm not
the guy who wrote Lord of the Rings, who wrote the Silmarillion, who wrote the Hobbit, and so on. That guy. But
oh yes, thank you very much.
Okay,
I know what Tolkien is.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, but you know what was interesting about the movie was when you get to the end of the Sword and the Stone, you got to remember nothing that kid really ever did was for himself. Everything he did was for somebody else. So when he pulled the sword out, it wasn't because he wanted it for himself. He wanted it for somebody else. And then again, when he pulled it out, it was like everybody's trying to move. He's like, well, okay, I'll just try and pull it again. And it was like, you know, everybody else is waiting for me to do it. So it's like, okay.
Well, and fun fact, I don't know if anybody realizes this. The one knight that's dressed in black has the black beard. Unless I'm mistaken, that's the same voice actor who did the voice of Richard the Lionhearted from Robin Hood, what the one we'll be talking about in a little while. So, or it even sounds a little bit like the guy who did the voice of Tony the Tiger. Thurl Ravenscroft. I wonder if that was actually him who did that line, because there's one knight in the whole bunch who says, "Let the boy try," and he has a very deep,
Yeah.
very
No,
resonating,
he wasn't a
moving
knight.
voice.
He was, I think, a noble. Which is,
He,
I say,
yeah,
let the
well,
boy
a knight.
try.
Well, a knight or a noble, they were often back in those days one and the same. Most of your nobility were knights, so because they came from royal birth and everything or what have you. But I yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you that what Arthur did was for selfless reasons, but at the same time, there was a legend around England and everything, particularly, and they talk about it in the movie. There is the inscription on the blade and everything that says, "Whosoever pulleth from this this the sword from this stone and
And
anvil
so,
is
who be
right
worthy.
is right wise king of all England."
You
And
know, it's almost kind of like, when Odin put, that on
mhm,
Mjolnir.
yeah,
I mean, I never made the comparison till just now, but if you think about it, it was kind of a similar concept.
yeah, yeah. And I think that might even have been something that they borrowed from the Arthurian legend for Thor, or vice versa. So, I mean, gotta think about it. There is a lot of Arthurian legend that is sprinkled out through all different sorts of pop culture and all sorts of films and everything, science fiction, fantasy, superhero stuff, whatever. A lot of that and everything, there are references to the Arthurian legend and everything that are put into modern books, movies, TV shows, the whole Megillah and what have you. And this was Diz, and honestly, I know some people may throw shade at this movie. I don't see why. It's a cartoon, for heaven's sake. But I think what Disney did with this movie was present a very good um, version or adaptation of the Arthurian legend that kids could sit down and watch with their parents, and that they could follow and they could understand, that they could get something from it as well. Because if you want to get into the real Arthurian legend, or if you want to go deep into your Arthurian legend and you want to see a more adult version of it, you do
Watch the one with Clive Owen.
watch King Arthur or watch Excalibur and everything. Because, well, even with that, you get two different renditions or versions of the Arthurian legend. You get what could be considered a pseudo historical version with King Arthur, and you get the real. Okay, not when I say real, I don't mean like real, but I mean an accurate um, depiction of the Arthurian legend that's written down and everything that everybody knows to one extreme or another. It's about the
You
most
know,
accurate.
um,
It's about the most accurate version we have of the Arthurian legend that there is. Anything but King Arthur is more of a historical or pseudo historical um, retelling of the Arthurian legend. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad. For all we know, there could have been a person named Arthur Pendragon way back when, who had a wife named Guinevere, and there was a guy named Merlin, and there were all the knights and everything, like Lancelot and Galahad and Percival and what have
Sean
you.
Connery.
Huh?
Sean Connery is King Arthur.
Oh, you talking about First Night? Yeah, we have.
Of course, I'm talking about the first night. I mean, you're going to talk about the great King Arthur. Why not?
I've never watched it. We have it.
Well, yeah,
So
okay. No, you're fine. I have no issues with it.
yeah.
Have you seen Dragonheart?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Okay, so think about that when you're talking about that whole fight scene with Merlin and that one witch.
Mim,
It was so fun.
Madam Mim.
Yeah, it was one of the funniest things. It was an argument I got into with my cousin, who at the time we were the same age. We were about 5, 6, and she was defending the dragon of the whole. where
Mm-hmm.
he changes into some animal, and he's like, "Mim, no dragons." You remember? Did I say no purple
Ain't no
dragon? I said,
dragon.
"Well, you said pink dragons." She goes, "Well, he said pink dragons." I was like, "But they said dragons." I was like, it was an argument that my cousin and I actually got into for quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit before he finally got old enough to say, "Okay, this is stupid." But it
Mm-hmm.
was just a fun argument, You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're like, wait a minute. She said pink dragon. Well, she said pink dragon. I'm like, but she said dragon. Well, she said pink. I'm like, but she said dragon. It's
Yeah.
my first foray into critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, and
it
the
was
other.
interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those few movies I was going to tell you about. I was waiting till we talked about Star Trek 6 or the Undiscovered Country, but yeah, this was one of those ones. I was in West Virginia. I
Mm-hmm.
was at my grandma's house, and I was watching the movie, and I watched the whole movie all the way through, and then I turned around, finished the movie, and asked my grandma, I was like, "Can I watch it again?" I wanted to watch the sword, and it was one of those I just remembered.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and speaker for Deb brought up a good point and everything. I love the fact that they so seamlessly were able to do those animal transformations for Merlin and for Arthur when Merlin's trying to teach Arthur different lessons about getting along in life, and even the part where he does one and everything that is just kind of frivolous but still fun, where he turns him into a bird. Because again, to his argument about will men ever fly, and
Oh, but I love that where Merlin had his arrogance, and
Mhm.
Archimedes had his arrogance, and at times their arrogances kind of clashed where they were like,
Oh yeah.
"Okay, you're right, I'm wrong."
Hmm. Well, and here's the thing: it's the first time that that Archimedes really warms up to Arthur when he is a bird and everything. And he's like, "Are you sure you aren't a bird? Because you'd make a good one. Because you take to flying like a fish to
You're
swim."
natural. Are you sure this?
Yep.
Oh, ha ha! Watch out, boy! And then he's like, he tries to play it off like he's like, "Archimedes, save me!" He goes, "I had no intention of saving him. I was gonna eat
And then
him." Yeah, he was
and then
playing it off. And then
well,
even
and that
Merlin
leads.
tried to say, "Were you
Mhm.
really going to try and do stuff for pin feathers, gully fluff?" I mean,
Mhm. So,
AJ, come on in,
um,
Chad. Sorry, buddy.
but the other interesting thing was actually that part leads to the whole Arthur game bumped into Madman Mim's cottage, and it leads to the
Yeah,
confrontation between it leads to the wizard duel between Merlin and Mim. And honestly, I think that's one of my favorite parts of this whole movie is
yes,
that moment and is that whole duel and everything. Because up until this point, Merlin had been using his magic primarily for education, but you get to see a bit of Merlin the sorcerer, Merlin the conjurer, Merlin the badass. In a manner of speaking, in a
I'm medically not, and I've caught you, Mim. First, you were breaking in spots, then followed by hot and cold, and then finally
so
sneezing.
yeah,
Oh, you wicked little
yeah.
devil,
He's like,
you!
she's like, you said no disappearing. He's like, I am not disappeared, madam. I am a
I'm
germ,
a germ, a rare
the
disease.
disease.
And you know
Uh,
what? She never said no
no
germs.
germs. Well, but
And
what the rules was nothing, no make believe or nothing
yeah,
made up.
yeah, no make believe like pink dragons or something.
Uh
No
huh.
dragons. Did I say no? Well, you didn't
Yeah.
say no viruses. with your living
Yeah,
thing.
you did.
And it
And
was
viruses
like,
are real. But this
I
is the part
mean,
where,
that was just, one of
but
the
that was
most
one of those.
beautiful, smartest ideas in a cartoon. And,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
feel as good or as bad as ever. I hate Stetson. Also, knowledge and wisdom is the real power. That was the takeaway.
Thank you, Speaker for the Dead. And you've got me, Mim.
First, yeah.
Hmm. And he
Now
goes
it's
into
green, not
all the symptoms.
cirrhosis.
And
And
she's laying
you
there in
caught
bed.
me, ma'am.
But yeah, that was a really good that was a good moment and everything where we get to see Merlin in all his glory in a matter of speaking. You don't see him conjure storms, except for that one part where he turns into he dumps a little blizzard over Sir Ector's head and everything there at the beginning, just to display his power a little bit. But I
And
think,
he still got stuck in the shitty guest room.
hmm,
And they still get stuck in the crappy guest room.
yeah. And here's the thing I'm thinking, Merlin, you're a wizard. You could repair that tower in 2 seconds if you wanted to. Why didn't he? If he's such a powerful wizard.
Do you really want to televise how strong you are to everybody?
Point taken. But here's the thing: they were already scared of him, so why not go ahead and do it?
Well, yeah, that's true.
Because Kay was like, "Why don't we just throw the old guy out? Be done with it, and be done with his trouble." And Actor's like, "No, no, he might put a curse upon us all." So they're already afraid of him. So you played devil's advocate a minute ago. I'm playing devil's advocate now.
No, you're actually totally right on there. I mean, he could have easily, I don't know, maybe was holding a little bit to the vest.
So, but the great thing about one of the other wonderful things about this movie is, oh, for heaven's sake, what was the other thing I wanted to bring up? Oh yeah, even for someone like me who's in their 40s, this movie, it speaks to the child in all of us. And that's one of the great things about the Disney movies. Whether you, as Walt Disney himself said, whether you're 6 or 60, this stuff can appeal to you. And he was right. In a lot of ways, Disney was right. Because you think about it, the movies we talked about this week, the movies we're talking about tonight, and everything with Tron and with Flight of the Navigator, and now with Sword in the Stone and Robin Hood. These movies, regardless of how young or old you are, they appeal to you, and particularly even if you don't have kids, or if you do, and you're able to sit down and share these with your sons or daughters or granddaughters or younger nieces and nephews or whoever, they still appeal to you, and they're truly timeless. And I think that's why they are so endearing, and they're so charming, and they're so much fun to sit back and watch and reminisce about. And as I've mentioned, particularly with us still all cooped up at home to one degree or another, these are movies that you can sit down with your kids and say, this is something I watched when I was a kid. And I think, and more often than not, your kids or your grandkids, or like I said, nieces or nephews or whoever, they'll be like, I like this because it sparks the imagination. And yeah, Speaker and everything brought up an interesting little point. Who didn't want to be able to change themselves into an animal when you were a kid? I totally did.
Yeah, hands down.
And well, and to everybody in the chat, this is a little participation for you and everything for whoever all is still in the chat and everything. Comment below what animal you would want to transform into.
Oh,
And this,
you know what? I almost want to be. I almost want to be my daughter's guinea pig.
A skinny pig.
No, guinea pig.
Oh, guinea pig. A guinea
Guinea pig.
pig? Why
Yeah,
a
guinea.
guinea?
I don't know. I
Okay.
think my daughter has a beautiful little guinea pig, and it's cute as heck.
Okay.
And it's the
Uh,
easiest pet in my house to take care of.
and to all of you who are in the chat, unlike Merlin, there are no restrictions, so this can either be a real or a fictitious animal. So I think, and just for myself and everything, I always wanted to be a wolf, a big timber wolf.
I can see
That was
that.
that was that was my animal and everything. Either that or something fictional and everything, a fictional animal. Um, this is a tough one. I would have to say if it was a fiction, a mythological creature. This is hard. Darn.
Well, I know my mythical creature, but you probably wouldn't know what I'm talking about.
You might be surprised. Go for it.
Okay. If I was going to pick a mythical creature I'd be a bruja.
A what?
Bruja.
You're right. I have no idea what that is.
That's okay. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay. Um,
But if anybody else knows what I'm talking about, they might know it. Okay, I'll give you it's not a big deal. It's a vampire clan from a role playing game I used to play back in the day,
oh, okay.
and it's just a clan of vampire. It was you
Okay.
had Bruja, Gangrel, Venetru,
Okay.
Tremere.
I follow
Yeah.
you. I follow you. I follow you now. Okay.
Yeah.
I think if
So,
it was a
so overall, did you really enjoy the way the movie went about, as far as, the whole thing? I mean, Merlin kind of came off as powerful, but remember from the beginning, he still didn't know who the heck Arthur was until the end of the movie, which I found kind of nice. That even though he was powerful, he still was a little ignorant at times.
um honestly overall I think the movie did a good job representing all the characters and everything. It didn't bother them that they took a little artistic license with Merlin and everything and kind of made him a little fallible and made him where he couldn't see absolutely everything because it made him more relatable. Because if they had made him this omnipresent, omniscient wizard and everything, he wouldn't have been as relatable. But that's not the case here. He is extremely powerful. He is wise and everything, but he is not omniscient. He can't see absolutely everything. So, but to answer to go back to kind of round up and everything, my question, mythological creature, I would want to be a griffin because they're very cool looking. They can fly. They've got the lion's body and the hawk's head and everything.
The talons
So
too.
yeah, that too. So oh speaker. Oh man, you were talking about one of my favorite villainesses, one of my all-time favorite Disney villains. Speaker, remind me later. I'll send you a picture. I've actually got a Funko Pop of that. I actually found it a couple months ago. And everything, but yeah, honestly, overall, this movie I think it does a supremely excellent job of giving an introductory level, a child's perspective on the Sword and the Stone, on the Arthurian legend. And if you want to follow up with something that's a little more, once your children or your kids are old enough to deal with something a little heavier, I think either Excalibur or King Arthur would be a good follow up for either one of these. Because you can say, okay, here was one interpretation, here's another, and here's another, and it kind of gives you a good overview of the legend overall. So, but Any final thoughts on Sword in the Stone before we jump into Robin Hood, Jesse?
It's one of those early Disney movies for me that just was enjoyable and actually, strangely enough, if you think about it, there's no really any music in the movie. Do you remember any songs from the movie? Because
You
I
talking
mean,
about
I was thinking
you
about
talking about Robin? Or are you talking about Sword in the Stone?
no, I'm talking about Sword in the Stone because I remember we were gonna segue into the Robin Hood movie, and I was running Robin and Little John running through the
Running through the
forest.
forest.
Who did lie? But
Bloody.
now I'm thinking
No,
Sword in the Stone. I don't think had any
it
songs.
didn't. It didn't really and everything. It was one of those less musical Disney movies, which I don't think was necessarily a bad thing because when you have a glut of a lot of Disney musical movies, it can kind of diminish what the story they're trying to tell. Now to lead into Robin Hood, it does have a very good song. It has a very talented singer and everything singing the songs. Because you've got Robin Hood and Little John running through the forest. You've got Speaker for the Dead. Yeah, he does. Yeah, I good point. Merlin does sing several songs, but they're more like they make the spells into songs to kind of um mix things up a little bit. I think what me and Jesse were talking about is more purely musical pieces in the Disney movies and so on. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember what you're talking about when he did the spell to wash the dishes and
mhm,
in the Sword and the Stone. Yes, but
yeah,
you're right. That's exactly what I was talking about. It was little hints there, but it wasn't a full blown musical. So it just hit me that it was like, wow, that wasn't in there.
so
And then we were transitioning into Robin Hood,
yeah,
whereas the first thing we get is a full
yeah,
blown musical of Robin and
yeah,
Little John.
yeah, and yeah, and I can't for the life of me remember who sang the songs in the movie and everything, but he was a very good singer. I think he was a country artist and everything that they got to see to do the voice of the rooster. Um, I think the rooster's name was it was Bailey Odell or something like that, and he's a wandering minstrel. And
Hooter lolly golly,
Golly,
what a
golly, what a day!
day.
Yeah, and then you get the love song for Robin and Marion. You've got every town's got their ups and downs, but especially in Nottingham and so on. And this honestly, this version of Robin Hood is one that has, I think, actually grown a bit of a cult following over the last several years because it started to come back into people's consciences and a great deal and everything. Because it's really one of those lost, forgotten Disney gems that people are going, "Ooh, this was really good." And believe it or not, we will, me and the missus, we have it. Was it Glenn Campbell speaker? Thank you. You are just a font of useful information this evening, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Glenn Campbell. I think you're right. That sounded like him. But we actually were able to find this version, the Robin Hood and everything, on Blu-ray. And I think the fact that they took the effort to transfer it to Blu-ray is kind of is kind of a little bit of evidence that this movie has stuck in the public conscience for a lot of years, and it's kind of it's stuck with people and it's stuck with their children. And you can pull this movie out and throw it in, and it's a good film to also. This is another good movie to introduce the whole Robin Hood folklore as well and everything. And it does change it up because obviously these are anthropomorphic characters or anything. You've got Robin as a fox. You've got Lil Jon as a bear. You've got Maid Marian as a lady fox, or as they call her, a vixen, which is the proper terminology for a female fox. You've actually got Prince John as a maneless lion because think about it, most male lions have a mane, but Prince John doesn't. But his brother King Richard does have a mane.
And he
And
called for mom while he's sucking his thumb
yeah,
because he
and you've
doesn't
got
want to blame. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist when you said his name.
yeah, and you've got Sir Hiss as the snake, and
Did
you've
he
got
remind you of the
Ka.
Khan from the Jungle Book
Well,
in a
here's
way?
the interesting thing. Well, here's the interesting thing, and this is something that people have brought up. I think I think at the time when they made this, Disney was kind of a little bit strapped for cash. So they did recycle some footage or whatever from Jungle Book for this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if you yeah, I don't remember where I saw it or anything, but some bits and pieces they did copy the movements of the characters from other movies, and in particular Jungle Book, because you have Kaw the snake, you've got Baloo the um,
Yeah.
bear, and I think those are the main two. But I think there are a few others where they did that as well. I even think they used a little bit of stock footage for Maid Marian and everything from maybe Snow White. I'm not 100% for sure, but if you hold up certain scenes of Marian and Snow White moving side by side, there are similarities.
Oh, thank
But
you.
even
You just want to
but
try and ruin my childhood, why don't you?
well, I'm not trying to ruin anybody's childhood. I'm just trying to inform. I'm not trying to. If you,
I'm just messing
regardless
with
of, I know, regardless of what I tell you, folks, and everything, don't think I'm trying to crap on these movies. The truth was, Disney was strapped for cash at this time, and they were wanting to put out a movie, and you do what you have to make the projects that you want to make, and this was a project they wanted to make. So I'm
Well,
not
what's
going to.
interesting is,
Yeah.
sorry, but what's interesting is they were strapped for cash, and these are two of the movies that
Mhm.
were two of my favorites. I mean, when you talk about the 2G level, these
Mhm.
were two of my favorites, hands down. Little Mermaid, and you could ask my wife this why I like the Little Mermaid was mostly the songs. And those are the 2Ds that really always stuck out the most, those three. So you got two of them right here. There were I cannot believe these are the lost gems. I've got to get my kids to watch these because we have
Mhm.
Disney Plus, and I got to believe they're on there.
Yeah. Um, Loki, I'm not quite sure I follow your question, so if you can clarify, I appreciate it.
What was the question?
Loki said, "What live-action movie had many of the characters from Robin Hood?"
What live action?
Um,
Well, Disney has not done. I know BBC did one. I know there was one on UPN a long time ago.
well, I know that there have been several different versions of Robin Hood, the Tales of Robin Hood, because you got the original with Errol Flynn, you've got the one with
Yeah,
Kevin Costner, you've got one that they did.
I
It's called
still like
Prince.
that movie. I don't care what anybody says. I love
Oh,
the Kevin Costner.
I absolutely love.
I love Prince of Thieves.
Oh yeah, so do I. And actually, Disney did a version of it, another Robin Hood and everything called Princess of Thieves, where it was actually I think Robin and Marian's daughter who took up the mantle.
Well, here's a funny thing. You know how all these people were giving him crap for his English accent? Being in the
Eh,
military as long as I was, I've met many, many, many different people from those areas of Europe. He may not have had time, but his accent was not off par at times.
yeah,
It just meant he was from he could have easily have been from a different district.
no, that's entirely possible too.
Oh, trust me. I mean, I got that from Brits. They were
Okay.
like, 'cause we were like,
Okay, I think I misunderstood Loki's question. Made the animated characters in Disney's Robin Hood also appeared in live action. I think he's saying the voice actors.
Oh,
They made appearances. Honestly, Loki, I couldn't tell you. So
no, the only one I know of is James Earl Jones.
yeah, because well, I don't consider Star Wars Disney. Star Wars will always be Lucasfilm. It won't be Disney,
Oh
even if
no,
they own it.
no, that's not what I was talking about. I
Hmm.
was talking about the Lion King.
Yeah, I know. I was too, but
Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. No, that's the only voice actor I could think of who is transferred from the animation to live action.
yeah, well, I don't consider that one that they did last year live action. That was CGI. It was just really good CGI. But came back on target and everything with or came back on track with Robin Hood. Yeah, you've got. I feel
Robin
like
Hood,
an idiot.
Robin Hood, and Little
Right?
John, Robin through the
No,
forest.
no, no. Jesse, Bedknobs and Broomsticks and its animated characters and the voice actors. Yep. Why did I not think of that?
Whoa! Oh my God, my kids love
Loki, that was a good. Um, I know which one you're talking about and everything. I've actually seen Bedknobs and Broomsticks. How could I have forgotten that? Dang it! I'm slipping in my old age. Loki,
you.
good catch.
Lansbury.
Yeah, Angela Lansbury. Yeah, she was absolutely wonderful in that movie, and I liked the other guy who actually played the father in Mary Poppins. He was in this as well. Dang, that's another one I'm gonna have to
Yes,
cover at
he
some point.
was.
I'm gonna have to cover that. Dang, I'm gonna have to cover Bedknobs and Broomsticks now. Loki, thank you for giving me that idea.
Oh, now I'm gonna have to go watch it again. Well,
Well,
thankfully, I'll get all my family.
I wonder if it's on.
We love that movie.
I wonder if it's on Disney Plus. It might be. I'll have to check.
Poison dragon's liver.
But yeah, but this version of Robin Hood, I think it actually played up the I think it played the drama angle of the story rather well because they go somewhat dark in with this particular story because at one point Prince John just goes absolutely mad with power and he just absolutely taxes the people of Nottingham into the poorhouse and into prison, as a matter of fact. And he even, okay, I'm going to say this, and I don't really say this, but the sheriff of Nottingham was a first rate jerk. He beat up a priest and imprisoned him because he imprisons Friar Tuck, who's a badger in this.
You want taxes? I'll give you taxes.
Yeah, then
You're under arrest for high treason to the crown.
screw the crown.
Man,
Sorry about this. This is one time I'll say, hang the crown. Not literally, folks. Don't think that's a don't think that was a threat against the crown. Not that I particularly, not that I would threaten the crown of England, far from it. But in this particular instance, with this movie, hang the crown, hang Prince John, hang Sir Hiss, and hang that rotten, stinking sheriff of Nottingham too. Of course, they end up getting theirs.
Think about the beginning of the movie where they, the narrator, that little rooster. You got to remember the whole movie's being narrated by that rooster through the whole movie. Yep. I mean, he's the one doing the songs. He's the one doing the narration. Yep. And through the whole movie, you kind of almost you could watch the whole movie and almost forget about him, and he's still the one telling the story.
Yep, very true. Very, very true. But yeah, this
actually did he ever get his name in the movie? That rooster. Now that I think about it, I don't think he ever got a name.
He mentioned. He says it's Galen Odell or something like that. Yeah, he mentions his name, but yeah, this movie actually was, I think, one of the few. Well, it wasn't one of the few times. It was one of the first times that I can recall, except for maybe like Sleeping Beauty, that it goes really, really dark. and everything at one point. I mean, they take a big downturn. Yes, yes, speaker. I that one I will agree with you on. The sheriff is a scumbag, but he's good at it. Yeah, he is. He is a Fortunately
Mm,
he's a really good scumbag. But that's the
instant
thing.
and immediate death. Oh wait, that was Prince John.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
thinking of Prince.
yeah, I
I
do.
will say
You know what? I'm gonna bow out now because I just screwed up that whole thing.
no, you didn't. Don't bow out. You're good.
No, I mean I'm gonna bow because I mean like I quoted Prince John. I was trying to quote the wolf, and now I screwed it up.
Yeah, but I think the great thing about one of the great things about this is it does have a good balance of the humor, and it also has a good balance of the dramatic themes of the Robin Hood folklore. Because Prince Little John says, "Hey, Rob." I love the fact that he abbreviates Robin Hood's name. He's like, "Hey, Rob, don't you feel bad that we're stealing from all these people?" And Robin's like, "Oh, gee, no, Little John. We're just taking from people who can afford it."
Our Robin Rich to feed the poor.
Feed the poor.
Rob, that's a naughty word. We never rob. We just borrow from those
Borrow.
who can afford it. Borrow. Boy, we're in debt.
And to the chat, Star Wars Rogue Podcast, greetings, my friend. Good you could tune in. We're just where we just started our discussion. We finished up Sword in the Stone a little while ago. We're currently talking about um, the end of Robin Hood, and as you can see it on the screen, everything on the background here. We're talking about the anime version of Robin Hood, which is from your neck of the woods, as a matter of fact. So if we get anything inaccurate, please forgive us. I'm just a simple Yank.
Speak for yourself. I ain't no Yank. I ain't from
Uh,
the north.
when I say Yank, I'm using their terminology. When they say Yank, they
I
mean
know you
American.
are, and I refuse to take that.
Well, Jesse,
Hold him like Craig, man.
even I don't consider myself a Yank. I'm a Southerner, sir. I come, I have family from the great state of Kentucky and the great state of Texas. So I'm about as Southern
What
as
I got Midwestern roots. We Tennessee, we Kentucky, we Indiana, we Illinois. I'm in South Kakalaki. All right.
well.
This
Anyway,
this movie though, getting
mhm,
back on track.
yeah,
This movie was just a total lot of fun. I mean, in its
yeah, it
simplicity,
was.
and they did a nice job with the animal morphics. I mean,
Yes, it did.
okay, Robin
Mhm,
Hood was a fox.
mhm.
Little John,
Was a bear.
ironically, was a joke. Little John always being tall made him a bear. We had the turtle. We
Yeah,
had
that was one of the kids. Yeah, because it was a
uh,
rabbit.
the
It was a rabbit. It was a
rabbit.
couple of rabbits and a turtle that were the kids and everything. And I'm just gonna say this. I don't mean to. I hate the fact I would have personally hauled off and slugged the sheriff of Nottingham right in his greasy, slimy snout for stealing from a kid because that family of rabbits scraped and saved.
Oh, the Farsians, yeah. And
No,
those little mice were
the
ready to
farthing.
pound
He
on
took
him,
the
and
farthing.
it's like,
He took the farthing from that kid. He took
yeah,
from that little kid rabbit. And then Robin shows up as the blind beggar, and the sheriff robs a seemingly blind man. But then Robin Hood pulls a fast one on him and gives the family a bag of gold and everything to get him through. And he gives the little boy rabbit his bow and arrow and his hat.
yeah, and
And
that starts kind of the. We forget about those two. That little boy, he's really a big part of the movie.
he is in a manner of speaking. Yeah, he is. And the other I love the different schemes that Robin Hood and John come up with, like at the beginning where when they first encounter him, and they see the royal entourage with His Royal Highness Right Honorable Prince
Taxes,
John.
taxes, beautiful, lovely taxes.
Yeah, and they both and they rob. They take practically everything they can take from the sheriff and from Prince John and everything, and they completely rimwreck that entire entourage. They take the gold, they take the gold hubcaps, they take everything that is valuable away from them, and then give it to everybody else. I love that part. He even sucks the even Robin Hood when he's kissing the rings, he takes the gems
Yes.
out of the rings
Oh,
off of
yeah.
Prince John's hands, and I'm like, yes,
You may kiss the rings.
you may kiss
Yeah.
you
Oh my
Jesse.
goodness.
He
I
does
forgot about
Jess
that part.
Jesse does have a high pitched voice. You may kiss the royal fingers. Oh. But he's always one. Robin Hood and Little John are always one step ahead of those idiots. They're always one step ahead of them. They always figure a way out of whatever situation they're in, especially with the archery tournament when Robin Hood disguises himself as a stork. And of course, you have that great scene and everything where I think it's the Maid Marian's lady in waiting, Lady Cluck, actually
Showing the kiss.
yep.
I wish luck with all my heart. Yeah,
Yep.
she knew who it was.
Of course. But that was a darn good disguise, though. But yeah, I love the part where you've got Lady Cluck and everything running and they've got the football music and everything in the background, and she's running along like a running back in football, and she just knocks all those rhinos and elephants on their buses. Are you talking about my Prince John Adega? Sorry, I just happened to do a good Peter Ustinov, who was actually the voice actor for Prince John and for Sir Richard the Lionhearted, who was actually a lion. Fun fact for those of you who may not remember. But yeah, I love all this story and everything. It pretty much runs the storyline of Robin Hood and Marian falling in love and her getting captured and so on by Prince John and Nottingham and whatever. But they do add a little bit of a twist to it and everything, and they make the ending of the movie where they have to go and save Friar Tuck from being hung. And it turns out that they get everybody in on the whole robbing act and everything.
You better hang Friar Tuck, a man of the church. Yes.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my favorite was those two little I don't know, what were they, buzzers? What is Trigger and his brother, and it was the safeties on old Betsy. He goes, wait a minute, is it say? And they were looking very, wait a minute, is safety on old Betsy? You bet it is, sir. That's what I'm afraid of. You go first. Because you know, that one time he accidentally shot it off.
Yeah, it ricochets everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing, though, because those two vultures who are the sheriff's guards ends up being, I think, the guards over Nottingham and John and Sir Hiss at the end, because they all end up in jail.
Yeah, and he's like, "Here comes the bride, Trigger, present arms." And
yeah,
he pulls the trigger, and it hits in the very end of the movie.
Married. Married and everything. It hits right into the back of the carriage that Robin and Marian are riding in.
I'll be darned. I didn't think they were watching the prisoners. I thought they were actually prisoners too.
No, I think they were. Well, the thing you have to remember is they were just doing their duty, but they weren't malicious in their duty. Nottingham, he was a jerk, and he deserved to be in jail, as so did Sir Hiss, or just Hiss. and silly
John.
serpent. Yeah, Prince John. Silly
Silly
serpent.
seven.
Serpent.
You
And
better
I
watch.
love. Okay. There's this one part that I absolutely loved. It's during the archery tournament scene where I think it's no, it's Little John that takes his and puts him into a barrel of wine, and his comes
Oh
out
yeah.
drunk, and he comes out intoxicated. Now talk about throwing something like that into a kids movie. And
Oh,
I'm like,
you know what drove me nuts when I was a kid, when I first
hmm
saw that, was where Little John was Sir Redgick, Duke of Chuckneck. And
yeah, Duke of Chuck.
he just messes up with his, and he goes, "Oh, excuse me, Buster." And you got to understand, there's a context behind that. We used to call my grandfather Grandpa Buster. So
Mhm.
it was like all of a sudden I heard somebody say something I've been hearing around my house all the time, and I was like, "Excuse me, Buster," and I had to pause the movie for like about 3, 4 minutes because I was about 8 years old. I was just laughing my butt off.
I can imagine. Well, actually, now that you say that, it was Little John that got all the gems out of John's rings. It wasn't Robin that
Yep.
did that. Yeah. So, but yeah, you gotta give the animators and the voice actors credit for this movie because they did I think they did a good job at presenting a interpretation of the Robin Hood folk legend and everything, or folklore, fairly accurately, and they gave a version of the story that most everybody can follow and understand and everything, and not go too haywire, unlike that version of Robin Hood that we got a few years ago from Ridley Scott with Russell Crowe, which I did not care for whatsoever. But that's just me. But yeah,
I thought there was another Robin that passed out Russell Crowe recently.
Um, not that I can recall, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So, but yeah, there was one other thing that I liked, and that was the final scheme. That was the last mission and everything to get Fire Tuck out of jail. And Robin Hood and Little John are going in. They're going in on their own, and Little John's like, "Look, I like Friar Tuck too." And he's like, "I don't want to see him hang, but if we get caught, we're going to be just as much of a noose as he is, and what have you." And but Robin's like, "Don't worry about it, John. I got this. I got this. I got this, dude. I know what I'm doing." And they're able not only to save Friar Tuck, they're able to save all the people in town, and they get every last bag of gold back from Prince John. And then, of course, they cause little Prince John to set half the castle on fire. And of course, and you've got that scene and everything where Hiss is going, "He's gone stark raving mad, 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 mad." It just echoes off.
Yes. Oh my goodness. He's like, oh yeah, because Hiss is lecturing him, and he's like, he's so great. Footstock, Raven, man. It appears now I have an outlaw for an in-law, which I swear Mel Brooks stole from that movie.
I wouldn't say stole. Maybe. Well, Mel Brooks didn't use that line.
No. I meant that last part. Just a little bit. No, I mean, I'm just being sarcastic.
Oh, sorry. It's been a long day.
So, yeah, me too. I got 2 dogs staring at my face now, and I'm like, I've already walked them 3 miles, dude. I'm tired.
Yeah, like leave me alone.
But yeah, Robin Hood was one of those different Disney movies. I mean, it was kind of it wasn't animals that could speak necessarily. It wasn't just straight up humans. It was anamorphic. I think actually might have been the first time They went anamorphic. I could be wrong, but it kind of is the first time I remember that. And it's one of my favorites. Hands down, I loved it. I loved all the animals. I loved the archery
Yeah,
tournament, everything. I
yeah.
loved Prince John. I loved all of it.
Well, and I even honestly, I think I even like the love story between Robin and Marion. I think they did that part very nicely.
Well, it was nice that they already established they were in love. We didn't have to build on it. Sometimes it's just good to just say, you know what, this is there. Just here's a few words, call it a day, instead of trying to
Mm-hmm.
build on something you don't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, okay, Robin Hood and Marianne. Okay, they're in love. Great. Would you like to tell me Peter Parker's origin, or Clark Kent's, or Bruce Wayne's while you're at it? You get what I'm saying there. We don't
Yeah.
need this. We know the origins. We don't need to be. I don't understand why everybody wants to retell these origins that we already know.
Mm-hmm. I
We
wholeheartedly agree with you. Absolutely. And Speaker, he brought up a good point too. He's like, I love that in this Robin Hood, they portrayed him correctly. He stole from the government officials who stole it in taxes from the people. He didn't just steal from the rich. Yep.
ooh, I could
I
go
I
so
would say,
political here, but I'm gonna
well,
shut up.
let's not. But let's
No,
not.
I was making a joke. I don't
Oh,
do
I know
that
you
here.
were. Yeah, and I think Speaker was making a little bit of a joke too, but it is somewhat accurate as well because Prince John was the government, but he was overtaxing the people. He wasn't reasonably taxing the people.
Hey,
Right.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry, Ambassador. My wife and kids are asking me how much longer we're gonna be.
Actually, we're going to wrap up here in just a few minutes or anything because I think we've covered both these movies pretty well. Um, there was one other thing
Yeah,
I wanted.
sorry about that. They
No, no,
they
no.
just kind of came
If
in and
you
they were trying to be
no,
polite about it.
no, Jess, if you want to go ahead and bow out and everything, that's fine and everything. There was one other thing I wanted to share before we sign off, but this is something I'm going to just do myself and everything. So, but I appreciate you being here and everything and talking with me
Yeah,
about
these
these.
are two. Yeah,
Mhm,
these were two movies that Disney put out that I remember very well. I enjoyed them for very different reasons. Uh, I enjoyed Sword and Stone for what it was. I
mhm,
I really just it was actually one of the movies I parodied the most as a child with Archimedes jokes.
mhm.
Just that, and then you know, uh,
Yeah.
Robin Hood. It was such a good movie. It was so well done. And like I said, we didn't need to know, and even though I was a little kid, I didn't need to know the origin of their
Mhm.
love. It just, you know, they were in love. Okay, thank you. I was a 70-year-old kid, even I got it.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
gotta, we don't have to we don't have to twilight everything, for lack of a better term.
Very true. Very,
All
very
right.
true. So,
All right. Hey, Ambassador, I'm going to bow out so everybody can
yeah.
get to sleep.
Like I said,
Good night, bud.
we're gonna wrap up. So, Jazz, thanks for being here, my friend. You have a good night and you take care. Peace, my friend. But yeah, folks. Okay. No, he's okay. There we go. Yeah, folks. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I do extremely appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed our discussion and everything on the Sword and the Stone and with Robin Hood and so forth. And make sure you hit that like button, share this with your friends, and everything if they are a fan of Disney and everything. Um, one, two, there we go. Come on, there we go. Um, as I think I've mentioned to most everybody, this week after tonight, I will be off air and everything until next week, until next Monday, with afternoons with the ambassador and everything. We be continuing our Babylon 5 review. But as most of you know, this week is Holy Week and Sunday is Easter, and I wanted to end this stream a little bit differently and everything, and it didn't make a difference if Jess had left or not. But being this is Holy Week, I wanted to, share a few thoughts and everything about what Easter means to me and maybe share a few lines of scripture and everything with you all before I sign off for the next few days and everything. So if this is not your sort of thing, I understand if you want it and everything. If I'm going to kind of tune you out and everything, if you're respecting just to talk about Robin Hood and everything, I hope you got that and Sword in the Stone about Disney. But this is going to be, for a lot of Christians, a very unconventional Easter. We're not going to be able to have the opportunity to gather together as a unified body in our churches and everything and what have you. And for a lot of us, myself included, this is how we'll do Easter, is online. And most of you know, I am a devout Christian, and I'm working towards becoming a pastor. And I feel it in some ways to be a disservice if I don't share my faith, and I'm not trying to shove my faith down your throats. I hope y'all know that and understand that. But there's a lot of uncertainty in the world nowadays, particularly with the virus around and everything. And faith is one of those things that a lot of people can turn to when stuff like this comes up. And with it being Holy Week and what have you, I think this is an opportune time for us as the body of Christ and as that I'm a part of to share my faith with you all. And for those of you that may want to catch us on the replay, please know I am not trying to evangelize you. I am just simply sharing my faith. And if it speaks to you, all the better. And if it doesn't mean a thing, okay. But I just wanted to share a brief reading from the Bible, from the New Testament. And it's actually, I have several, but this is one of my favorite passages of scripture. It's actually from the book of Romans, chapter 5. Romans 5, verses 1 through 11, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, 1 through 11. Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand. And we boast in hope of the glory of God. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. You see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly, for us. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Since we have been justified by his blood, how much more shall we be saved from God's wrath through him, Christ? For if while we were God's enemies, we were reconciled to him through the death of his Son, how much more, having been reconciled, shall we be saved through his life? Not only is this so, but we also boast in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now received reconciliation. May God bless the reading of his word and the alignment that it brings. And that, my friends, is what Easter is about. It's not about Easter baskets. It's not about an Easter bunny. It's not about Easter egg hunts or any of those other things. It's about the message of hope that the world received from God through his Son, Jesus Christ. That's what Easter is truly and honestly about. And as I said, this is not me shoving my faith down your throats. This is just me simply sharing my faith with you. And if anything I said strikes a chord with you and you want to reach out to me, my Twitter handle is right here on the screen. If you have questions or anything, you can reach me there. So I just want to say, God bless you all. Have a blessed week. Have a happy Easter. As Speaker for the Dead said on Sunday morning, he lives. Good night, folks. And until next time, this is the Ambassador signing off.